I can't tell you how much fun I had putting that introduction together. Anyway, welcome to my slide presentation on the elements of effective writing. In this presentation, I'm going to explore 4 specific elements of effective writing and how they're captured in Sam Harris's September 9th, 2012 article entitled Life Without Free Will. But before I begin my summary, let's review the elements I've chosen to discuss. The first element of effective writing is to be provocative. As you might have guessed, I'm not commenting on an author's wardrobe, but rather on their chosen subject matter and how they go about discussing it. Authors must always keep the interests of their audience in mind. To capture interest, an author must start by picking a relevant topic, but he can't stop there. A climatological writer, for example, won't win any Pulitzer Prizes by arguing that winter in Canada is cold. Beyond relevance, good writing often takes a controversial stance and boldly defends its point of view. The second element I've included is the importance of painting a picture. Effective writing allows readers to visualize the elements of a given story and thereby enjoy a deeper and richer experience. Third, effective writing involves colorful and imaginative prose. In other words, style counts. Writing in an eloquent or creative way enhances memorability and therefore the reader's experience. Finally, effective writing will break through the noise that surrounds us in our everyday lives, and it will leave a lasting mark on its audience. To really understand why Sam Harris's article, Life Without Free Will, is provocative, you have to first appreciate his audience. Harris is an American-born author, philosopher, and neuroscientist. He's a proponent of scientific skepticism, an advocate for the separation of church and state, and a critic of organized religion. He swims against the current on many hot-button topics, which earn him equal helpings of public scorn and admiration. People are seldom lukewarm about Harris. You either love him or you hate him. This is what makes his writing so provocative. And few topics are as provocative as the debate over free will. We all have a consciousness, and so this naturally makes us all think we're experts in the field. Harris takes the unintuitive position that free will is an illusion. He begins by attacking the most common argument in favor of free will, the idea that without it, people would do whatever they want and feel helpless to avoid temptation. He states, "The reality of good and evil does not depend on the existence of free will, because with or without free will, we can distinguish between suffering and happiness." Another provocative statement made by Harris is that the feeling that people are deeply responsible for who they are does nothing but produce moral illusions and psychological suffering. We'll come back to this in a minute when I describe one of Harris's thought experiments. He also states, "By recognizing that my conscious mind is always downstream from the underlying causes of my thoughts, intentions, and actions does not change the fact that thoughts, intentions, and actions of all kinds are necessary for living a happy life, or an unhappy one for that matter. And seeing through the illusion of free will has lessened my feelings of hatred for bad people is one final example of Harris's provocative contentions. He goes on to clarify his central argument, the illusionary nature of free will, by painting a few pictures, which I'll share with you now. Harris asks us to consider how one goes about becoming a pediatric surgeon. Let's start at the beginning. First, you have to be born with an intact nervous system and in a country that allows you to pursue a proper education. No free will there. You have to have the talent for the job and be lucky enough to avoid injury. At some point, you have to consciously want to pursue this profession, but where does this desire originate? Did it materialize out of thin air, or was it shaped by perhaps a childhood experience to which you had little or no control? And between making this decision and winding up in an OR with a scalpel in your hand, there will be hundreds of thousands or even millions of factors at play that you will have little or no control over. Now, Harris admits you can't become a surgeon by accident. It takes years of dedication and hard work, but giving your conscious mind full credit for this achievement is a mistake. He goes on to paint us another picture that illustrates how this mistake can have a negative impact on our lives. Harris creates a thought experiment by asking us to imagine that we're napping in our backyard when out of the bushes leaps a giant bloodthirsty grizzly bear. If we survive the attack, and assuming the bear isn't destroyed, we might later visit it at the zoo and proudly display the beast to our friends and family. If, however, the attacker was a man with a knife, we would be far more emotionally damaged and would likely spend years fantasizing about taking revenge. Just the sight of him at some future point in time would likely trigger another traumatic experience. The reason our reactions are so diverse is because we assume the man, unlike the bear, has free will, and this makes his crime infinitely more heinous. But what reaction would you prefer? Would you like feelings of triumph and amazement at surviving a life-threatening attack? Or would you rather a seething hatred and compulsion for revenge? From both a physical and emotional standpoint, which reaction do you think is healthier? Throughout this article, Harris employs colorful and imaginative prose. Nowhere is this better illustrated than when he concedes that it is not productive to explain the illusion of free will to children. To really capture this idea, he writes, "This strikes me as a legitimate concern, though I would point out that the question of which truths to tell children, or childlike adults, haunts every room in the mansion of our understanding." This is my favorite quote because Harris conjures up such vivid imagery. Metaphors can sometimes be overdone, but Harris finds the right balance between factual writing and the occasional burst of creative embellishment. Finally, Harris sets about ending his article by ensuring that his readers appreciate that the debate over free will is not just some abstract philosophical issue, but one that has real consequences in people's lives. In this way, Harris attempts to leave a lasting mark on his audience. He writes, "While it's conceivable that someone, somewhere, might be made worse off by dispensing with the illusion of free will, I think that on balance, it could only produce a more compassionate, equitable, and sane society." Now, I can't speak on behalf of all of Harris's readers, but this article certainly gave me reason to pause and think twice about how I see the world. Ultimately, as an author, I don't think you can ask for much more than that. On the matter of reshaping an individual's worldview, Christopher Hitchens once wrote, "It is very seldom that in debate any one of two evenly matched antagonists will succeed in actually convincing or converting the other. But it is equally seldom that in a properly conducted argument, either antagonist will end up holding exactly the same position as that with which he began. Concessions, refinements, and adjustments will occur, and each initial position will have undergone modification, even if it remains ostensibly the same. You may still believe in free will after reading Sam Harris, but it probably won't be the same concept you started out with." And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my Learning Task number 2 slide presentation. Happy reading and writing, everyone.